Good morning, Vaqueros. DJ Doc V. You're listening to Office Hours with DJ Doc V. Boy, what a great time we had yesterday at College Radio Day. It's actually today. Thankfully, the College Broadcaster Incorporated set both Thursday and Friday as World College Radio Day. We do it on Thursdays here at UTRGV since there's not a lot of foot traffic on Fridays for very few classes. We also did it Tuesday on the Brownsville campus. So really great to see students come out. And I'll tell you, the big popular thing yesterday at College Radio Day was the karaoke we did. It was fantastic. We had a lot. In fact, we didn't even get to everybody. So I think maybe next year when we do College Radio Day, we'll just do karaoke the whole time since it was so popular. It is Friday, October 3rd. It's 5 minutes after the hour. And 80 degrees in the beautiful upper Rio Grande Valley here in Edinburgh at the UTRGV Edinburgh campus. We're expecting a high today of 92 and pretty high humidity, 70%, and very little wind. So it's going to be sticky. It's going to be hot. So when you get a chance, get inside, get in the air conditioning if you're not already in there. We're also looking coming out this weekend for the rest of the weekend. We expect highs of 91, 93 on Saturday and Sunday, respectively. And then once again, mostly sunny on Monday for our return to work. A little bit less humidity, thankfully. Monday the 6th, we are expecting a high of 96 with mostly sunny skies. Got some great music picked out for you today and a very special poem. This is not coming from UTRGV student media. Normally I select a poem from either Gallery or Pulse magazine. But I was, I tell you what, I'll save the introduction to the poem when we get there. That'll be at the bottom of the hour. But right now I'm going to play a double shot of Pink Floyd. I don't play a lot of Pink Floyd here, which might seem unusual for those folks that know me, since Pink Floyd's my personal favorite group of all time. But I'm going to play two songs back to back, both from the same record. This is from The Final Cut. And the first one, the Fletcher Memorial Home. This doesn't sound like a pop song or a rock and roll song. This is really kind of a poem put to music, it's fair to say. Pink Floyd, one of the greatest bands of all time, arguably very, very popular, very successful. Dark Side of the Moon, The Wall, iconic. But The Final Cut is a controversial record, especially for Floyd fans. It's a lot more political. This first song, Fletcher Memorial Home, you'll get the picture of what they're talking about here. The album came out in 1983. This is Ronald Reagan was president in the United States. Margaret Thatcher was the Prime Minister of England. And Roger Waters has some thoughts about not just Margaret Thatcher. He's obviously British, but also just about world leaders and how they behave. So keep that in mind as you listen to the lyrics of this one. And then right after that, we'll do Two Suns in the Sunset, which is the last track on The Final Cut. But and others would say, and I remember this being told to me by another Pink Floyd fan, he goes, where the wall ends, the final cut begins. So it's almost like the wall, the third movement of the wall, I guess, or the third and fourth movement of the wall. This is, again, a song called The Fletcher Memorial Home. And pay attention to the lyrics here. You'll pick it up. It's not it's not very subtle. So here you go. Only on Vaquero Radio, formerly of the Police, but that was his solo work off of Nothing Like the Sun, a song called Fragile. There was actually a great version, although I didn't necessarily like it all that much, I guess, when Sting got his Kennedy Honors, or was it Kennedy Honors? Maybe it was a British thing, and Annie Lennox did a version of that song. But I'm certainly worthy of covering because it's a great song. We started off that with two double shot of Pink Floyd from their LP, The Final Cut, the Fletcher Memorial Home, and then Two Suns in the Sunset. Again, as I mentioned before we played those tunes, the Final Cut is a pretty controversial record, even for Floyd fans. Some people thought it was a little too political for their tastes. And I think you certainly got a sample of that in those two songs. Fletcher Memorial Home talking about tyrants and kings. We got to put them away somewhere so that they can just, talk amongst themselves and make sure that they understand they're still real, but let's get their fingers off of any potential buttons, shall we say, And then Two Sons in the Sunset. Well, what on earth could they possibly be talking about? Well, the moments when the brakes lock, he says, you slide toward the big truck. I mean, this is obviously a depiction of what it would be like if you're driving in your car and there's a nuclear attack, because you see, two suns and behind you, even though the day is done, as he says in that song. So, and keep in mind, sure, nuclear weapons are still around today, but back in, when that record came out, it was a lot more, people were a lot more sensitive about it. It was something that was certainly a source of anxiety for those of us that lived through toward, the end of the Cold War. You could argue the Cold War ended when the Soviet Union collapsed in the 90s, but, this record was 1983. And concerns about nuclear weapons were still at the forefront of conversation. So, a very interesting pair of songs there. I was I was thinking about doing 3 songs from that record, but I'll tell you what, we'll save one of them for next week. And maybe we'll do the title track from Final Cut next week, because that one's a little bit more personal, a little bit more introspective. Thanks for tuning in, Vaqueros. This is DJ Doc V. You're listening to Office Hours with DJ Doc V. It's 24 minutes past the hour, and a balmy 80 degrees here in Texas in the 956. And we've got coming up just in a few minutes here with This Day in History, as we do every day. Or every day, every office hours. This Day in History is coming up. But let's play a couple more songs before we get there. This one is Steely Dan. And yes, this is an older group. And I was a fan of their music even before I heard about this one. This one was kind of an afterthought. This is something this song I only really discovered in the last couple of years or so, despite the fact that Steely Dan hasn't been active in 30 years or so. So this is a song called Any Major Dude soundtrack. If I haven't seen that one in a while, that's a great tune. We started it off with Any Major Dude Will Tell You from Steely Dan. And it's 10:33 on Friday, October 3rd. As we do every week on Office Hours, I'll give you a little bit of this day in history. First, born on this day, Stevie Ray Vaughan, 1954, the dynamic guitarist and vocalist who led the 1980s blues rock revolution until his premature death at age 35 in 1990. Also born this day, Gore Vidal, who was an actor as well as an activist, died in 2012. And finally, Gwen Stefani, lead singer of the 90s ska band No Doubt, also she's former judge on The Voice, I forget. But she also had some solo hits as well. Born on this day in 1969. But as far as this day in history, on this day in 1995, at the end of a sensational trial, former football star O.J. Simpson is acquitted of the brutal 1994 double murder of his estranged wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend, Ronald Goldman. In the epic 252-day trial, Simpson's dream team of lawyers employed creative and controversial methods to convince jurors that Simpson's guilt had not been proved beyond a reasonable doubt, thus surmounting what the prosecution called a mountain of evidence, implicating him as the murderer. O.J. Simpson, a Heisman Trophy winner, star running back with the Buffalo Bills, and popular television personality, married Nicole Brown in 1985. He reportedly regularly abused his wife, and in 1989 pleaded no contest to a charge of spousal battery. In 1992, she left him and filed for divorce. On the night of June 12, 1994, Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman were stabbed and slashed to death in the front yard of Mrs. Simpson's condominium in Brentwood, Los Angeles. By June 17, police had gathered enough evidence to charge O.J. Simpson with the murderers. Simpson had no alibi for the time frame of the murders. Some 40 minutes after the murders were committed, a limousine driver sent to take Simpson to the airport saw a man in dark clothing hurrying up the drive of his Rockingham estate. A few minutes later, Simpson spoke to the driver through the gate phone and let him in. During the previous 25 minutes, the driver had repeatedly called the house and received no answer. I don't think we need to lay out any more of the evidence there. It sure seems that he got away with something there. I mean, and then he writes a book afterwards saying, "If I did it," I mean, it's bananas. He passed away, though. He died of cancer last year on April 11th. He did go to jail, just not for murder. He went to jail for burglary because he stole back some of his own memorabilia in hopes of putting together some cash because his former wife's family sued him and won a civil judgment for wrongful death, which he then was on the hook for paying. Also on this day in history, in 1863, President Lincoln proclaims the official Thanksgiving holiday, expressing gratitude for a pivotal Union Army victory at Gettysburg. President Abraham Lincoln announces that the nation will celebrate an official Thanksgiving. In 1932, with the admission of Iraq into the League of Nations, Britain terminates its mandate over the Arab nation, making Iraq independent after 12 years of British rule. Also on this day in history, in 1951, a miraculous home run wins the pennant for the New York Giants baseball team. October 3rd, 1951. What else? The Dick Van Dyke Show premieres here in 1961 on this day, including Dick Van Dyke, Mary Tyler Moore, who would go on to do her own sitcom. Also on this day in 1955, the Guinness Book of Records debuts. For the first edition of the Guinness Book of Records is published in Great Britain. It quickly proves to be a hit. And finally, on this day in 1967, writer, singer, and folk icon Woody Guthrie dies. In 1963, Bob Dylan was asked by the authors of a forthcoming book on Woody Guthrie to contribute a 25-word comment summarizing his thoughts on the man who had probably been his greatest formative influence. Dylan responded instead with a 194-line poem, which we're not going to read today, called Thoughts on Woody Guthrie. Woody Guthrie, famous for that guitar that said, "This machine kills fascists," on the guitar. Art does apply pressure. And I think we're seeing that these days with the current president going after comedians and people that make fun of him. So back to the music. How about it? I've got a great tune here by Cat Stevens. I might get a little emotional about that. I'm going to get emotional when I do that poem on children coming up here in about 10-15 minutes. Here's Cat Stevens with Father and Son. Here's with Here Comes My Girl, only on Vaquero Radio, the Valley's student station. Good morning, Vaqueros. Thanks for tuning in today. It's Friday, October 3rd, 50 minutes after the hour here on Office Hours with DJ Doc V. I've got another 10 minutes or so in the show, but as we do every week on Office Hours, I've got a poem picked out for you. Now, a little background behind this poem. I'm sure many of you listening probably have heard of the internet show Hot Ones, where they eat hot wings and stuff like that, and then the guy interviews someone, sometimes it's musicians, actors, comedians, whatever. And recently, Kate McKinnon, formerly of Saturday Night Live, was on. And she did the Hot Ones. She made it through all 10 sauces, so got to hand it to her there. But she she mentioned something that I thought she might have just been joking around because she's such a jokester. But she mentioned when he had asked her a question about something, she was talking about children and started to say, as Khalil Gibran, the poet and the philosopher, said, and I'm like, is this a person? Is this a real thing? But the line she chose from the poem really struck home, and I'm like, ooh, I got to check this out. So I looked up the poem, and Khalil Gibran is a Lebanese American who was born in 1883, died in 1931. He would resist, apparently, according to his Wikipedia page, he resists the title of philosopher. He was more of an artist, poet type. But he wrote this poem called On Children, and really struck home for me. So I picked that one to recite today. Again, this is a poem called On Children by Khalil Gibran. And a woman who held a babe against her bosom said, "Speak to us of children." And he said, "Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children, as living arrows, are set forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite. He bends you with his might, that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness. For even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he loves also the bow that is stable." That's a poem titled On Children by Khalil Gibran from his book The Prophet, published first in 1923. Boy, lots of themes there about what role do parents play? We call them our children, but are they really ours? They're certainly not possessions. They are individual human beings. They got to live their own lives. We want to, of course, impart as much wisdom as we can to them, but they still have to make their own mistakes and make their way through life. So that one hit me pretty hard. That poem when I first heard it, and hopefully you got something out of it too. So let's see. It's 10:54. We got time for one more song, but before we go, let's check in on the weather and see what it's like here in the beautiful Upper Rio Grande Valley. Certainly sunny skies today. Already 85 degrees. We're expecting a high of 92. And very little wind today, so not much, but the dew point, the humidity is going to be hot and sticky. Prepare. Make sure you stay hydrated. Stay in the air conditioning when you can. If you're going to be outside, wear sunscreen. Looks like for the rest of the weekend, we've got a high of 90 tomorrow, potentially some showers in the evening. And then Sunday, 94 degrees, partly cloudy skies. And for our return to work on Monday, 96 degrees, mostly sunny skies here in the beautiful Rio Grande Valley on the Edinburgh campus. Thanks for tuning in, Vaqueros. Make sure you listen to all of our great programming throughout the week. And I will catch you next week on the Office Hours with DJ Doc V. It's 10:55. Let's leave you with a little bit of Toto